Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to yet another episode of the Snarp Fangle podcast. I'm your host, Jake Metzger, along with a wonderful, musically gifted, and audiophile extraordinaire, David Reed. How are you doing, David?
I'm doing quite well, thank you very much.
You are. Would you consider yourself an audiophile at all?
I would not.
No, you don't want to be associated with
I don't want to be associated with those people. Much like the autistic book community of TikTok, it's better left to other people.
It's better left to other people, yeah. Yeah, like my sister, who's not autistic, but she does involve herself in the autistic book community.
Yeah,
also known as the TikTok book community.
She's really community oriented in that way.
Yeah. I mean, hey, if you got to write fan fiction about Transformers and all this kind of shibbolabity doobada, then there's something going on upstairs. So let's just be real. Dude, okay, so I was actually asking her, I'm like, is there like a coalition of fans in the Transformers community that like, oh, this is how their economy works. Oh, this is how their tax system works. You know, this is how their relationship works with businesses and corporations. And she's like, no, it's just based off generation. She gave me like a straight answer. She's like, no, it's based off generation and interpretation, like Transformers Prime, Transformers G1, all this kind of stuff. And then you get into the coalition of people figuring out consistency between fan fictions, which I was very surprised there actually is. Maybe not. I don't know. But I'm not going to dive into that today. That's not what we're here for to talk about on Snarp Fangle, David.
The topic for another time.
Another time for fan fictions. For those who are unaware, Snarp Fangle is our conversational podcast we do every week, where we bring a topic of discussion to you, the wonderful congregation of those listening today. We are honored to have your attention and time while we proceed to talk about what today's topic entails. I was kind of embracing my Lance Riddick there for a second. I love Lance Riddick. He's cool. Rest in peace. Well, David, today is kind of a chill out episode between me and you. We're going to catch up with you and me, and I was wondering if you want to go first or myself.
Why don't you go first?
Okay, well, it's a long one, so it might be the whole episode. Are you ready? Well, before we even get into it, so I've been gone on some crazy wildfire escapades recently. In fact, I might get a call any minute, depending on what's happening in the state of California where we live. But I want to say thank you to you, David, and give you a pat on the back and a big hug from me. That might last too uncomfortably long, but I want to thank you so much for taking over some of the podcast duties and stuff like that, especially on the video editing side. For those who aren't aware, David does the audio kind of side of things with mastering and making sure the mics are all set up good and making sure you're just far enough from the microphone and all that good stuff. And he's very, very good at it. And he's kind of been I'd say stretching a little bit and diving into the video editing stuff and the thumbnail stuff, which has been really cool to see. So how do you feel about that? You've been doing pretty good so far, I'd say.
It's a lot of fun, I have to say. It really is. I've never done video editing before. Never really messed around with, working with images either. But, I have to say I enjoyed it.
Yeah, some of the thumbnails that we have in the works right now from David are quite hilarious, and I cannot wait to see everybody's reaction to it. So, thank you so much, David, for doing that. You did one with Justin, an episode with him. That was our episode 20. I don't know what episode this one will be, but the one after Justin was with his wife, Sarah, and I don't know. Would you mind giving us a tease of what the topic will be for that one, or?
Well, by the time this one comes
by the time
out,
this is out, we're gonna know.
Well, yeah. So
never mind. You already probably listened to it if you've heard this one. You're listening to it right now. So I haven't, but I can't wait to listen to it this week. So anyway, as professional podcasting, ladies and gentlemen, But yes, thank you, David. I truly appreciate your time, your commitment to the Snarp Fangles. So anyway, let's just dive right into it. So I've been gone for a few weeks, and it's been very nice to be back the last couple days. I got back Saturday morning. You and me kind of chilled out and started cleaning the house and got ready for youth group. We had a movie night here, watched A Boy and His Beast, the anime movie by Madura. No, do you remember his name? Mamodra. I'm going to butcher his name. Never mind. A Boy and His Beast, the same guy that did the movie Summer Wars, as well as Belle and a bunch of great anime flicks. So we watched that, and that was very good, very, very awesome, very fun. Lots of names for Zootopia sequels were dropped while we were watching this. So the kids had a lot out of it, got a lot out of it. But anyway, before that, while I was gone, I'm trying to think of what day I left, but basically to tell you all, I got a job as a operator / logistics for a contractor with CAL FIRE. And basically, I'm not going to say the name of the company for sake of anonymity. I feel like I'll actually have my boss on eventually at some point in the podcast, his history. But right now, I'd like to remain anonymous for now, just because some of the stuff I'm going to detail I'd like to leave it off the books for now. So, but you're going to hear all of it. So here we go. So I work for a company contractor, and they have a water tender truck with CAL FIRE. And so for those who aren't familiar with California, we're pretty much on fire every year in the summertime. It kind of starts mid-July, and wildfires just start popping up everywhere from the insane heat that comes with this kind of climate in the state, along with also some people who probably are starting them as well, arsonists and the such. So there's a lot of fire that goes on in this state, and there's a lot of people that kind of are in the business to help stop them. And so that's kind of like where I fall in with this company. So me and my boss met actually at Butte College like 5 years ago or so. I think it was 2018 or 17 when I started working at the college. And I remember meeting him and helping out with computer stuff. And I remember him actually telling me of his dream because he was working for the Forest Service and CAL FIRE at the time. And then he was telling me about how he wanted to get into contract work. And I thought that was interesting. I had no idea what he was talking about at the time, but I was like, oh, cool, man. Hey, that's cool if you want to strive for that. That's pretty neat. And then he eventually started it up. It was 2021, 2020. He started his company, got his water truck, and it was just him and the water truck. And he just tried to get CAL FIRE gigs. And the way you get the work is there's a fire that starts. The CAL FIRE or the Forest Service will give you a call, or I think it's OES, Operating Emergency Services. They give you a call, and then you say if you're available or not and what time you'll get there, and then you just stay there until the fire is over, until they get rid of you. So that's kind of how that works. It's a whole kind of industry even in this state. So it's kind of interesting to be part of it throughout the last couple weeks. So anyway, I got hired from him last year, in fact. And I did all this stuff. I went through this whole journey, kind of started in January where I was thinking, oh, I'm going to leave my job at Butte College. I'm going to leave this job and I'm going to go ahead and do other stuff. And that's not what God had planned at all. So I actually left my job that I wasn't planning on leaving, and I kept the job at Butte, and I left youth group, in fact, at that point. And so my life was kind of in a rigmarole. And then I met Mario again at the college, and he was finishing up classes and all this kind of stuff. And he was telling me I was telling him how we were just catching up, and he was telling me about work. And so he ended up hiring me, but I had to fit a ton of criteria. So I had to get like fire training done. I had to get a Class B license. I had to do all this kind of stuff. Yeah, just crazy amount of stuff I had to get done within like 2 or 3 months before the season starts. And so I got it all done, and basically it was like mid-June or whatever when I got everything finished or whatnot, and we were all good to go. And then we had a whole year where we didn't get a single call to fires. And it was like really disappointing. In fact, it was a whole season of being in limbo, David, for me. And it was very disheartening, disappointing. Lots of hope was on the brink of loss and stuff. I've been questioned about even staying with him, in terms of, working for him. But then finally, come this year, he got a call over to the Sites Fire over by Colusa and Maxwell, the city of Maxwell. And so this was a fire that was mostly grass fire, grass fields, dry grass, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, he gets a call. He also gets a night operator named Chris. And these guys are awesome. I'm going to go into detail of them later. But he had me come on as a logistics person. So I run the chaser rig, our basically Toyota Tundra. and just handle all the minutia stuff. So it's kind of like my job description is logistics. So it was really neat getting his call and being kind of jumpy and scared, like, oh, shoot, there's a fire going on. He's like, hey, we're heading up to the fire right now. The Sites Fire is what it was called. And this was in June 20th, 19th of 2024 or whatever. Anyway, he gives me a call and he's like, hey, we're going to head up there. We're going to try to settle in and then we're going to have you come on. And I was like, okay, cool. And so 2 days later, he calls me and he's like, hey, we need you. Come on up here. And so I drop what I'm doing. I was actually watering plants for a neighbor at that morning at 8 o'clock. And I ran back home, threw a bunch of stuff in the truck, drove down to Colusa, which is about an hour away. And I met the night guy, Chris, there. Again, we all met beforehand and did training earlier in the summer. But yeah, I met him there, and then he went to bed because he was working all night. And then I was kind of given charge of the truck, and then thus my job started. So, David, if you have any questions or any inquiries, just feel free to interrupt me and go for it, by the way. So, because you know me, I can just talk and talk and talk, and it's I drab on way too long, so. But I'm sure somebody will find it interesting. So we were on the Sites Fire. So in the Sites Fire, we were located in Colusa Fairgrounds in the city of Colusa. And it was very interesting. It was, I had to get used to how the camp was set up. I pitched my tent that night. I had my truck I was driving around and everything. And I was trying to find parking places because it was hot, so I was trying to find shade. So basically, that was my first day. I got the truck. I had Chris go to bed. Chris actually got up a couple hours later, showed me around the camp. Oh, I forgot. The reason why he called me, he said, hey, the lock. So on the truck, there's a 50-gallon tank that we put diesel in to fill up our water tender truck. And for those who aren't aware, the water tender truck's about 2,000-gallon water truck. And it's basically just a giant Ford truck with a giant tank on the back, basically. Huge, huge truck. So I take the Tundra truck, which has the gas tank on the back. I drive all the way to Chico, an hour there. It turns out the gas tank works just fine, and the lock on the cap was working fine. It must have been user error or something like that. So he gave us just a twist-on cap that's just sits on there to this day for now. And then I drove the truck back to Colusa and just stayed there the rest of the time. And it was kind of interesting. So that night we went over to Mario to relieve his shift because he was working in the day, my boss. And he kind of had us train again on drafting from the river because with the water truck, you can actually you take the hose, you put it in the water and you roll it back and forth in your arms. And there's a clamp that opens and shuts when you do that movement and it sucks water into the hose. And then you're able to basically prime the hose. You turn on what's called the PTO, power takeoff. And then if it's primed enough, you can just suck water straight from the river. And that's how that works. You can also just hook it up to a hydrant, and that works perfectly as well. So there's lots of different avenues for that. So that was interesting. I get to learn all this different stuff as we go through the Sites Fire. And I believe the Sites Fire ended at about 14 to 16,000 acres overall. And when I got there, it was about, I think, 7% containment when I started, and then we were there for about a week. And it was interesting. It was getting used to how the camp was set up, how CAL FIRE sets things up. There's a whole organization called the CCC, David, and I can't remember the exact acronym and what it stands for. It
stands for California Conservation Corps.
Yeah, California Conservation Corps. And basically, they hire a bunch of young adults or kids, basically, whatever. They basically,
mostly people fresh out of high school. Yeah. So they hire a bunch of those kind of folks, and they work 16-hour days, and they help with supply, picking up trash, doing everything that CAL FIRE needs them to do, as well as run the supply tent and all the lunches and all that kind of stuff. So kind of interesting. So they were there along with me kind of in the camp and all the whereabouts. And the way it works with CAL FIRE is, especially with a big fire like this, they call people from all over the state. So I saw people from Salt Creek. I saw people from L.A. I saw fire engines from Fresno. There was a ton of different just engines all together. Really interesting stuff. I think the personnel in total was over 2,700 when I was there.
with varying degrees of adding more people or taking more people off, depending on how the fire's going. So anyway, the site's fire in Calusa. We had to drive to get Chris to the location for his night shift and bring Mario back. I had to drive about an hour and 20 minutes with the truck up these like mountains into like the foothills and rolling hills. And it was kind of it was scary at first. I'm not going to lie. Like going into these mountains onto these windy mountainous roads, like going past road closed signs that you can go past because you're part of the unit. And it was just kind of surreal. And then you look and you see where the fire is burned on the mountains, all the ash on the hills, all the detergent and retardant that they dropped from the planes. Really crazy stuff. And I think it was the first 4 days I was there was like smoke in the mountains every morning. And then by the 5th day, the smoke kind of deteriorated. So they were kind of just doing cleanup or mop up, as they call it, from there. So it was a lot of learning during this time. God was really working in my life and even Mario's as well and Chris. And we were just kind of just learning how to work together and get used to each other's personalities and whatnot. Like what my boss's expectations are of me, making sure I have all my stuff lined up, writing lists down, making sure I clean out the truck, I get everything lined up. I have to call like Les Schwab places just to make sure if we blow a tire or something, we want to make sure we have a contingency plan for that. Les Schwab, if you aren't aware, they have like red cards, which means they can go out to fire incidents. So if you do blow a tire, most Les Schwabs, if you call them in California, will just go and take the tire out there and replace it for you. Really, I mean, yeah, obviously you have to pay them, no duh, but it's cool that they can do that. So every fire incident I was on, I had to make sure I had Les Schwab lined up in case something happened. So, and I always make sure I did 1 or 2 of them just in case. So on the site's fire, we were located in Calusa, like I said before, and the days basically started out as waking up at 5:30, 5:45, going out to getting our coffee, going to briefing, which is at 0700. So every morning there's a briefing of how the fire is going, and then they post it online, updates later on, or live stream or whatever. And so me and Mario always went to that in the morning, and then we go out and relieve Chris. I bring Chris back and kind of just make sure the truck is all tidied up and good to go, make calls if I need to, just all the logistics kind of stuff. So I don't want to get too much in the minutia, but it was a lot of getting used to, and it was a much easier fire compared to the later ones I was involved with, which we're going to get into. Also, part of the thing with the way the camp is set up is most people are on 24-hour shifts. So you have an engine that leaves that morning, right? The fire engine. They go out to the line. They don't come back till the next morning. So they'll probably work throughout the day, and then they'll get some sleep at night on the line if there's time to sleep, depending on how the fire is going. And then they come back the next morning, and then another new truck goes out there. So that's how the 24-hour shift works. And we were on 24-hour shifts as well. So my boss would work through the day, 7 to 7, and then the night guy, Chris, would work 7 to 7 at night. And that was actually my original position, was the night shift. But the way things were going, it was kind of cool how God was working and kind of like introduced Chris to Mario at some point during the springtime here in 2024. And he's a retired fire chief of 40 years plus experience. Like, he's been in this forever, and he's like in his 60s, and he's just this old hard ass dude who's just awesome, and I love him, and he's great, and he's got a bunch of different stories. I want to say he watched, it was Van Morrison in Chico, when he came to Chico or something like that. Like, he's been to tons of different concerts. He's seen like all the classic people. He's seen ABBA. He's seen Huey Lewis, all this kind of stuff. So he's got a lot of crazy stories come from that guy, and he's pretty cool. And my boss, Mario, is also pretty cool as well. He went to the Army at high school age. He went to the Army when he was 17 or 18. After that, he joined, or before that, he was part of actually the CCC, the Conservation Corps and all that. So he did that when he was a teenager, went to the Army after that, and then went into firefighting right afterward. And he worked all kinds of positions. Like, he worked the dozer, he worked water tender, he worked on the fire line, he worked just a ton of, he drove engines, all this different stuff. So he's a lot of experience as well. And he got me, a greenhorn, coming in here having no idea what to expect and what he's doing. So Those two guys have shown me a lot of patience and grace, and I'm extremely grateful for that. But also doing the logistics side is kind of nice because here's the thing, David, before I get any further, is on a fire, there's many different positions and roles. So for example, there's the dozer, right? They're going to dig into the ground and draw a line in the ground so the fire can't go over it. And that's a hard job. You have the people on the line who dig up the grass and the dirt and the ash and douse the fire and help get that situated, right? You have the people who drive the engines, people who drive the water tenders, the people who drive the chase rigs like I do. And each one of these people kind of look at the other job and they're like, whew, man, I'm glad I don't drive the dozer. That seems like a really hectic and crazy job. And the guy in the dozer's like, man, I'm really glad I'm not running around and tweaking around in that dirt with the fire line guys. I'm really glad that's not the case. And then you have the people who drive the engines. Man, I'm glad I'm not doing that. That seems really scary. And then you have the water tenders. They're like, man, I'm really glad I'm just delivering water to these guys, filling them up and going back and filling up. I'm glad I'm doing it. So it's kind of like, if you get into that mindset, and there's a lot of people who do get into that mindset, in fact, they're like, man, I'm glad I'm not doing that. I'm glad I'm not doing this. When in reality, we're all part of the same goal, and we're all part of the same crew, and we're all trying to complete the same goal. So it's not really like, oh, I hate doing this job, I hate doing that. It's really of, man, we're kind of just doing this we're all in this together, And of course you're getting paid, of course, but it's really saving communities and saving lives. That's really what it's about. In fact, there was one morning we were coming back it was Sunday morning, we were going to Chris. Mario was in the car with me. We were going through Maxwell, the city of Maxwell. And there was an old lady. This was like 7:45 in the morning. There's this old lady that's standing on like the corner of the street with a sign that says, thank you, firefighters, for all your hard work and whatnot. And it really hit me hard. I'm like, what the heck? Whoa, that's really neat. But it's also cool because she was intentional about it. She got up early on a Sunday morning with the sign and knew exactly when the firefighters were going to come through. And she stood there for probably an hour or so to tell them to let us know that they appreciate us. And you'll see a lot of that as you go through these fires. And that's something that really keeps you humble and just really touches you in a way. So it reminds you what it's really all about, which is saving lives. So those were kind of the lessons I learned on the Sites Fire. And the way we have a status called DBVE, which is Disabled Veterans something or the other. And basically that enables us to stay on the fire longer. So if it's a disabled veteran status, which is what my boss has, they will keep, generally you're the first to be called and the last to leave because veteran status gets you that, basically. So that's what we're under. And actually on the Thompson Fire, we got let go a little bit early, but that was a different scenario altogether. So on the Sites Fair, I'd probably say it was all about making connections, learning how the camp is set up and how things operate. And it was really interesting to experience that. And of course, it's 100-degree heat every day. They do have the semi-truck trailers there that are basically a bunch of bunk beds in there and AC. So there's places to sleep. They also have showers provided there, as well as food and all that kind of stuff. So you're taken care of for sure. But it is not an easy job, even in a logistics role, like especially me coming into this fresh, like getting to learn all this stuff. So that was the Sites Fire in Calusa. One thing also is kind of funny is during all these fires, at some point during the operations, like a couple days later or something like that, you'll see a t-shirt booth pop up where they sell t-shirts about the fire. And they're not allowed in the camp or anything. They're just like a company that makes them and custom designs. And you're like, oh, this is kind of weird. But you go there and it's kind of like the reason why they're there is to kind of like to remember that this happened and to remember that you got through it. So I actually went and bought a t-shirt for the Sites Fire and a hat as well, just to keep myself, remind myself like, hey, this is my first fire. So that was a Sites Fire. So we get back, I want to say it was the morning time, we reset, so we clean up the truck, we grease the truck, we detail the chaser rig, the Tundra, and it was kind of crazy because at the very last bit of it, we were getting the grease gun out of the truck, and this was totally on me. And we were kind of excited to go to demob, which is your demobilization thing, which is where you go, you bring your contract, you get your shift tickets, and then you leave camp. So, and every day there's a list called demob where, depending on how the fire is going, they'll let go a certain amount of people that they don't need. Like, for example, they'll let go dozers first because that's usually like drawing lines in the ground and getting the fire like contained. That's what those are for. And usually they'll let go of the dozers first. And water tenders and other people throughout the time, they'll get rid of all these other people. And that's just how it works. So when you get demob, it shows you what time, your name on there and what time you have to get out of here by or to report to them. So ours was like 9:30 or something. So we go there, we go through the process. It's just paperwork and just talking to the guy and making sure your shift tickets are all good to go and all that kind of stuff. Emails are sent and all that boring things. But before we headed over there, as we were heading over there, I left the tailgate down on the truck and the grease gun box was in the back. So Chris was underneath the water tender greasing up the thing. And I left the box on the back of the truck and the tailgate was down. So we're driving through town and then I noticed it was down. I pull over, shut it, get back in, headed off, didn't think a thing of it. Well, turns out the box with the grease gun in it, or the grease gun box dropped on the side of the road somewhere. And it looked like, and this was a couple hours later until we realized it was gone. And when I went back to go look for it, that it seemed like somebody just stole it and jacked it because it had a battery charger and the box. It was like a $300 box. Like, it ain't cheap. So that was a big blow to the end of this whole fire. And like Mario was freaking out. He's like, what the heck? Oh my God. And so I was freaking out. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, I hopped in my truck and drove back to town, looked for it for about half an hour or 20 minutes or so. And I was just stressed the whole time, freaking out. And I'm like, man, I might get fired. I don't know what's going to happen. And then I get back and Mario and Chris are like, yo, bro, look, let's end on a good note. It was just a box. We'll get it replaced. No worries. But before that, I was like freaked out because I was like, man, that was like company equipment, But anyway, it all ended good. The way some of this camp stuff works out is you get lunches every day, which are for firemen on the line. And so they're really heavy bags of lunches. I was showing you, David. They're like 5 pounds. They have snacks, all this kind of stuff. And you get a bunch of snacks, all this kind of thing. So there's non-perishable and perishable stuff in it. So my job every day was when we get our lunches, I separate the perishable and the non-perishable, and then we just bag up all the snacks, and then we split them out in the end. And also, when you get demobbed, you can also kind of want to go get a lunch after you're done and just get a lunch and you have food. By the way, this is all paid for by tax dollars, so I'm paying for this anyway, so I kind of want to get me a lunch, so that's how that works. So we dished out the snacks at Calusa Casino, wherever we were at, before we headed home. And we just dished out the snacks, said our goodbyes, and went home. So that was really nice. Then got home, slept just for 5 hours that afternoon, and then woke up and went on with my day. I then spent the night at my parents, and then I woke up at 2:30 a.m. from a call from Mario. And this goes into our second fire. So I get a call from 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning from him saying, hey, man, we got a fire down in Fresno. They're calling us down there. We're trying to leave as soon as possible. Just start heading out here. I'm like, okay, sounds good. Hop in the shower, take a quick shower, get my stuff together, go back and forth between a couple of the houses because I needed pomegranate juice because I'm going 6 hours away. I don't know if I'm going to be gone a month or whatever. And so we went from the Sites Fire down in Calusa over to the Fresno June Complex Fire. We were stationed in between the towns Orange Cove and Sanger, California, in Fresno County. This is over to the east side of California, right before you get into the mountains in the foothills area. And basically what the countryside looked like in terms of the size of towns and everything is like, imagine Orland and Chico, California, and Red Bluff. That's kind of like the sizes of those towns, even smaller even. So that's where we were, in the Fresno June Lightning Complex Fire, is what the official name was. And this was hot, dry, on a helicopter base. So we leave about 4 a.m. in the morning, headed down there south. And before I continue, David, do you have any questions or inquiries at all about the Sites Fire? Nothing at all. No peanut butter questions?
No peanut butter questions.
Oh, okay.
I'm just taking it all in, man. Just taking it all in.
Oh, okay. No worries. Well, what I will say is we drove down there, got there at about 10:30. Before we got to the base, so we had our instructions, our E-numbers, all that kind of stuff. So it was funny because I'm trying to stay awake the whole time down there. So it's a 6-hour drive. So I'm driving the Tundra truck behind Mario, who's leading the way in the water tender. 2,000-gallon water truck heading down south. Thankfully, they do pay for the equipment's like gas, specifically just the water tender. So that was kind of nice if you do get into this kind of thing. But anyway, we go down to Fresno. We fill up with gas at some random resort. We then try to find a hydrant. I'm trying so hard to find one. This is a whole troubleshooting thing. We're trying to figure out where the hydrants are. We're in the middle of the countryside, basically like out here where we live, David. We're trying to find a hydrant. Where are we going to find a hydrant? It's all ag stuff. There's no way we're going to find one. We finally find a school. So we go to this school. We turn into it. And stress levels are already super high. And I'm like freaking out. I'm like, okay, let's just keep going, keep figuring out. We'll fill up the hydrant. As we fill up in the hydrant, there's people there. It's like, summertime. So there's just people hanging out. There's like custodians there, whatever. I can see them off in the distance. We hook up to the hydrant. We're putting water in the truck. We go for about 3 minutes. And then all of a sudden the fire siren at the school starts going off. And we're like, what is going on here? And then the fire siren's like blaring at the school, like, brr, 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 and we're like, what the hell is going on? And then like finally Mario and this guy comes over and he's like, what are you guys doing? And he's like, well, we're with Cal Fire. We're filling up water. Like we have every right to do this. Like there's no way, like what's going on? He's like, oh, well. And so they run off somewhere to go in the office and try to figure out whatever's going on. Turns out apparently if you use the fire hydrant, the fire alarm goes off at the school. So that's what we found out. So what are the odds? So so tensions are really high. We then unload, we unhook the hose, put the cap back on, hop into our cars and drive back to where we need to go. I don't know where we're going. We're just going to this address on Google Maps. Turns out it's in the middle of a vineyard and it's a helicopter base where air shows are happened locally. So Cal Fire is staging there with their helicopters, and we're supposed to be there and stationed there. So that's where we're at, right? But when we get there, as we see it off in the distance, there's lots of flames and fire, and I'm like, oh, we're not going over there. Surely we're not. Well, in fact, we actually are. Turns out when we got to the helibase, it was on fire, and we just filled up with water, thankfully. So that was good. And I actually have video I recorded of it where. So first off, we pull into this like vineyard and we're driving down this gravel road and there's a Cal Fire like truck behind me, like blaring his lights at me to get out of the freaking way. And I'm following my boss Mario in the water. He's in the water truck. So I pull off to the side, finally find a space to pull off to the side. The Cal Fire guy passes me. I pull back onto the road. We're going down these roads and we see in the helicopter base is on fire. It's from my perspective, it's pandemonium. I'm not used to this kind of scenario. You have guys on the fire line trying to put out the fire. They have no water source. They have helicopters that are trying to come back and drop down water from, getting from the river that's just, like a mile away to here. But that's a long process and it's a messy situation. You need direct attack or initial attack, I would say. That's what the IA is. So we get to this helibase. It's on fire. Mario's in the truck. He's on the phone with me the entire time and he's like, go get out of the way and we're going in. And so he's doing initial attack on this fire. He drives into the field. He hops out. I hear this all on the phone. He asks the guys what's going on, where they need him. They're like, right over there. So he drives over there. We have a hose attachment on the back. He turns on the PTO, gets the hose attachment, and he just goes at it. He's like, just spraying the water on the fire. These are 4-foot high flames, by the way. So they're not insane, like no forest fire, but this is a grass field brush fire. Like it's a fire. So he's doing IA on this thing and I'm videotaping it and I'm like freaking out. I'm like, God dang. I'm like cursing. I'm like freaking out. I'm like, ah. And so finally, after doing some filming and putting my Nomex on, which is a whole nother thing that I'll get into later, but I get my fire pants on, my fire jacket on and just watch him go at it. And I'm like, dang, this is crazy. I'm like pulled off to the side by some other Cal Fire dudes. And I go up to them and I'm like, hey, this is like my second fire. Is there anything I should know besides get the heck out of the way? And they're like, oh yeah, there's some guys parked over there. Just go park in the helibase parking and you'll be fine. So I drive over there. Mario's still doing IA. And there's some dudes just sitting in the shade and the awning underneath an awning, and they're just watching them. They're like, oh yeah, they're like the guys who brought the porta potties or something that were scheduled to bring them that day. And they were super chill. And I'm like, well, I guess that means it's okay. They're just watching the show. And so I'm just watching the show with them, trying to stay at alert and staying on my phone, trying to record stuff too. And Mario's just kicking ass out there, man. He's just spraying that water. He's dousing those flames, and they get it all wrapped up in like 10 minutes. And I was like, dude, oh, that's amazing. So this is just the morning when we get there, dude. And so also, the reason why I don't want to name the company is this. So one of the head CAL FIRE guys was out there in the like burning field with the other guys and just checking in with them and making sure everything's taken care of. He was a good leader, right? And so he comes back and he noticed I was filming, and he asked me, he's like, hey, did you take any pictures or video out there? And I was like, yeah. He's like, could I see them? And I'm like, sure, yeah. And so I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever, dude. You're the boss. You know, whatever. I don't care. And so I show him all the pictures on my phone. He's like, okay, cool. All the ones with me in it, don't show to anybody, because I don't want my higher ups to know I was out there on the black where I'm not supposed to be. And I'm like, all right, sounds good. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then Mario comes back. He's fine. They only used like half the water tank, so less than 1,000 gallons. And the helibase was saved, and it was all good to go from there. We had some downtime after that, got our bearings together, situated together, making lists. And then he goes off and he starts to do what we were there to do, which was to spray the helibase. So on the water truck, there's like 6 parts, 6 corners, 6 sprayers on the water truck, 1 at each corner and 2 in the middle that go off to the side, like left and right. That where you turn on the PTO and you rev the engine up to, you keep it at about 1,500 RPM or so. The water sprays out. So the more RPMs, the faster the water sprays out. You want to put it in first gear, blah, blah, blah. It's an automatic truck. It's actually really nice. So it's really cool. But you can go into like first gear or even manual. It's really interesting. So anyway, he goes and does that. He goes and sprays the helibase, sprays the roads so the dust doesn't fly up from the helicopters taking off, right? He calls me about 15 minutes later, and he's like, this is like later in the afternoon. He's like, yo, bro, you need to start calling mechanics. The PTO's not working. And I'm like, what? The sprayers aren't working at all? And actually on the Sites Fire, we did have some issues with it, but Chris and them were just like, oh, you just hit the box a little bit or you press the switch this way and it works. So this issue carried over to the Fresno June Complex Fire. So basically also what a complex is there's multiple fires around, and CAL FIRE is like working on all of them. So in this situation, there was 2. There was one that was called the Basin Fire and one that was called the Bolt Fire. We were on the Bolt Fire, and that one got put out first. And then the Basin Fire was out in the mountains, and the Forest Service was attacking that one. So this was called the June Complex in Fresno. So anyway, I go ahead and I start calling people. And I don't know what I'm doing. I'm Googling numbers. I'm figuring out mechanics. I'm looking up repair people. I then find out that mobile repair is what I want, people who drive out to places, as well as truck repair. And so for 2 hours straight, I start calling people, just all these different folks, telling them the situation, what's going on. They're like, well, either we don't work on that kind of thing, power takeoff, which is in water trucks, garbage trucks, that kind of thing, or we're just not mobile, or we don't have a red card, so we can't go out to a fire incident with you, or this and blah, blah, blah. So like the devil and the enemy is like really attacking us and like preventing us from getting this truck fixed. Because if our truck doesn't work, we probably will get kicked off the fire and we won't be able to work with them. Because if you don't have equipment that's working, then you are no use to them. That's kind of how it works. So during this time, I was calling back and forth. I was calling all these people. I finally found a guy. I want to shout out Blue Line Hydraulics in Fresno if you ever find them up. This guy is a mobile unit. He didn't have his red card. It expired before he could get to it, unfortunately. But he was able to meet us outside in a town close by. I think it was Sanger, Orange Cove. He met us at, which was super nice. But at this point, I'm like stressing out. I'm like, you know, my boss is also an Army guy, so the way he talks isn't always like the super nicest way of talking, which is totally fine. But he's like, get it done, soldier. And so I'm like, okay, yes, sir. Which is totally fine. I love the guy. He's cool. That's just something I had to get used to. I wasn't used to it. But anyway, so I'm like freaking out. I'm like, oh God, okay. Finally, I get a guy lined up. Then we get confused of where we're going to go. So I tell Mario, I'm like, just put this street in Google Maps and we'll meet you there. I also did reconnaissance earlier that day to find hydrants around and trying to use this app Events and Maps, which is what CAL FIRE uses. And I've been learning it and I now know a lot more now. So we meet the guy in Sanger and we're able to leave the base, meet the guy. We go off to this like junkyard place, like off where nobody can see. And he starts testing the water truck. And I'm parked on the side. I get out and I'm like drinking some water and I'm like basically almost in tears. Cause I'm like, I wasn't used to the whole fire thing that day, the initial attack, seeing the flames up close, people freaking out on the radio, all this stuff happening. And, that build up with the stress and the calling people and getting things lined up, it's like all coming to a breaking point. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? And so he's able to temporarily fix it, the guy. And that night we get back to the base. We're working 8 to 8, so it's just 12 hours. So Chris isn't here with us. We're just doing 12-hour shifts in the day. So Mario's working the day, he sleeps at night, and I'm there with him. So he gets to the truck as the guy's working with the other water tenders and their shift tickets and all that kind of stuff. The head guy that was talking to me earlier that day. And Mario comes back to the truck and I'm just waiting for him to get it, get the stuff done there. And I basically just start breaking down the tears and he's like, yo, and this is what I love about him. He's such a good leader. He really makes sure his guys are taken care of and that we're his priority. Cause he's like, dude, just talk to me, Jake. What's going on? And I'm like starting to break down and cry. And I'm like, yo, bro, I'm not used to this. I apologize. I'm crying. I'm trying to. It's just so like, it just was too much for me. I couldn't handle it all. I could, but it was just, I had some shit. I should get some stuff out of my system. So plus waking up at 2 a.m. So I'm up since 2 a.m. and it's like 8:30 at night right now. And it's like all this kind of stuff. So anyway, it was just a lot. And so it was really like, just kind of nice to just talk to him and just tell him how it's going. He's like, yo, bro, this is only your second fire, man. Like, it's okay. Like, you'll get used to it. And this is good experience for you. He's trying to stay positive, which was really cool. Even he was encouraging. So we then, this is just the first day. So I'm almost done with the first day. And then the other day is going to get a lot shorter. Trust me. So at the end of our first day, we get Taco Bell. It's like 9:30 at night. We're in Sanger, I think, or Orange Cove. The camp isn't set up yet with everything we need, like showers and all that. So Mario's like, screw it, we're going to get a hotel. He calls some random hotel, which is never a good idea. And he's like, hey, we just need a room for one, a room for 2 people, just a normal thing, overnight. We spent about 20 minutes looking for this freaking hotel in downtown Sanger, and we cannot find it. It was called the Burgess Hotel. We finally freaking find it. It's on the corner of someplace in a sketchy part of downtown. Our car is parked across the street. We're like, dude, this is not a good idea. We then get into the hotel, right, with our stuff. There's a lady there behind like this wall, and we're talking to her, registering all that stuff. And then this little kid just pops out of nowhere behind her. He's like, hey guys. And it's like almost 10 o'clock at night. And Mario was kind of freaked out. He's like, whoa, I didn't. Okay, hey little guy, what are you doing? And I was like, and this kid was like saying really weird voices, really weird voice. We're like, okay, whatever. We then get our stuff, go upstairs with the keys, and this is a really, really, really old hotel, like from the 40s or 30s, that's just been refurbished like countless times. And it's like clunk, clunk, clunk on these hard wood stairs. And we're going up there, David. And then we look down the hall, and no shit you not, man, it's the Shining hallway. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of creepy. And Mario's like, yeah, this is really creepy. Good Lord. And then we're like, where's our room? Where's our room? Well, there's another hallway to the right, the only other hallway in the hallway. And then we go down that hallway, and there's 2 rooms on left and right. It's like the Stanley Parable, bro. I don't know what door I'm going to pick. And so we pick the left door, and that's our room. And we're like, oh, thank God. So we're able to get somewhat of a nice, comfy sleep that night. There was some stains on the bed sheets and pillows that were very questionable, so we took those off, and thankfully he had a bed, I had a bed, and we thankfully each had one pillow that was not stained with anything. So we sleep that night, get up, get our situation together. Thankfully, nothing was stolen out of the truck. The truck was totally fine. Praise God. Ice chests were there. Our hard box was there. Everything was there. Fine. I'm like, oh, thank God. Then we go back. We go to the meeting. We go to all this stuff. We go to Helibase. And then let me tell you, David, this day was filled with me making phone calls for 6 straight hours, trying to find a mechanic that would keep fixing the PTO, because we had our homeboy, Blue Line guy, who was awesome. But we wanted to see if there's anybody else that could fix this thing, because he doesn't have a red card. Somebody with a red card can come out here. I could not find anybody in Fresno, in any of in the entire county. I looked in like 5 different cities and I couldn't find a mobile mechanic, a truck repair guy. I find one group of people, truck repair, that's mobile, all the way down in Bakersfield, which is 2 hours away. But I'm looking at what their rates are, and it's probably going to be like $1,000 just for I have to pay for their mileage. We have to pay for all this stuff. So we're like, holy crap. So we end up just going with our homeboy at Blue Line Hydraulics. And we take the truck after shift. He's willing to stay an extra couple hours. They're willing to work on it in the evening till late at night if they need to. And they said it should only take like an hour and a half. And it turns out, after doing all these phone calls and figuring all this stuff, turns out it was just an electrical issue. Just a couple wires that was screwed up, that was getting grounded to the side of the box or something. So, after making all those phone calls and being like mentally drained, while my boss is obviously in the hot sun driving back and forth, he doesn't use the AC, by the way. Like, he refuses to use the AC. He just wants to, in quotes, climatize. So, Mario, I know that's what you want to do, and that's cool and all, but sometimes you just got to blast that AC and just cool down, okay? But he's a trooper, literally, and just keeps going. So he doesn't really use the AC. It's 100 degrees out, and I'm busy making phone calls and all that kind of stuff throughout the day. Finally, we get to southern Fresno. We drive about half an hour away to the guy's shop. And we leave the truck there, come back, eat dinner, go back, and he seems to have everything fixed. He had a young guy working on it, an electrical dude, and it seems to be working just fine. But we're going to find out for sure the next morning. It's 11:30. By the time we get back, we fall asleep and camp at about midnight, wake up at 5:30 and head on, or no, it's 6 o'clock. We get up at 6 o'clock and head on out because we don't have to start till 8. 2 extremely stressful days, without a doubt. Draining, totally wit's end kind of stuff. It was a little bit of hell for both of us. We then get to the Helibase. The PTO works, thank God. And then it doesn't. So we call our homeboy again. We even paid him, like, it only took them like an hour and a half to do it. And they're like, all right, we're just going to pay you for 2 hours because we want to make sure you earn your money and we just want you out of our hair. So Mario calls our homeboy up again. And I have the backup guy from Bakersfield just in case the guy doesn't come through. So Blue Line homeboy sends over one of his electrical buddies, and he just fixes it, and it's fixed. I don't know this at the moment, but he fixes it. So I'm in the car in 100-degree heat. I'm trying to climatize too. I'm not trying to use the AC, use up gas. So I'm just like stressing out, and I'm like trying to like focus on worship music or trying to something to get my mind off things. I'm praying a lot. Just, I'm sending Mario prayer messages. I'm like doing all this stuff, and I'm just trying to keep a level head. And this is our 3rd day. Anyway, he drives in. He goes and does his thing. I can't see really from where I'm parked at if the PTO is working. It seems to be, maybe. He then goes by and gives me a thumbs up, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. He comes back, does his run again, dusting roads, comes back. He gives me a double thumbs up. And I was like, F yeah! And then I was like, thank you, Jesus. And I was like, oh, so from there, it was pretty low key. It was just a really insane scenario. The PTO is fixed and works great. Everything's hunky-dory. And there's nothing really else that goes wrong from there. It was a pretty chill assignment. We're on the Helibase. We're not like in front of the fires or anything. We're not going out to the main location. We're just going to camp and Helibase, and that's it. They got like 3 or 4 water tenders out there, which is kind of overkill, I think. But we're doing our work. We're getting paid, and we're helping out the helicopter people. Cool. Awesome. I also make connections with people. There's a guy from Reading there that supplied all the lunches, ice, and drinks, like Gatorades and waters, on the Helibase. And I got to meet him. His name is Kevin. super cool. This is all also my job is about making connections with different people, and especially with the phone calls and all that kind of stuff. So it was really important to get those connections done and make friends and all that kind of thing. So networking is part of my job, and this fire on the Fresno June Lightning Complex really, 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 really cemented that and really made me more comfortable in that role. So we stayed there for about 5 days. I actually watched one of Thad's like Sunday morning services live streamed, which was cool, and was just really awesome to see. And God was just totally working, David, in all of this. Like, yeah, bad stuff would happen and all this, crap would subdue. However, God is always so good and he is always so great, and his mercy and grace just overflows on us. And I just can't go without saying it that, without him, I don't think I definitely could have gotten through it. In my own strength, I could have never done it, but in the Lord's strength, when we are weak, he is strong. And it's not if we encounter trials and tribulations, it's when we encounter trials and tribulations. However, he has overcome the world. And that was basically the main theme for this fire in these last couple weeks. So Fresno was stressful. Met a lot of cool people on this thing. In fact, we were getting demobbed. The day we got demobbed, we went back to camp. We got some stuff from medical supply. We just needed poison ivy stuff, sunscreen, that kind of thing. So we just need some simple things. And so I went to the medical guy, and this guy was super funny. He was like, I asked him about his bracelet thing, which is like a Nordic silver bracelet or whatever. It doesn't matter. He was like, oh, that's really cool, man. So he was super excited. I asked him about it because nobody apparently asked him about it. And then he's like, hey, you got anything you want to trade? I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, I have a bunch of patches. Do you have any patches you want to trade? Sew-on patches. And I was like, maybe. What do you got? And so he's all excited. He's running to his, Honda Civic, and I'm following him from the medical tent. And he's opening the trunk, and he's showing me all these patches. And he's like, you got anything you want to trade for these? And I was like, oh, sure. Yeah, let me go check. And so I grab a charging cord, and I'm like, this is really the only thing I'm willing to give up because everything else I kind of need. And so I take it over to him, and he's like, hey, you know what? Whatever. Here you go. And he gives me a Fresno County sheriff's patch or whatever, or fire patch. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. That's really neat. So I got a t-shirt from the Sides Fire and a hat, and I got this little patch thing from this Fresno Fire. So that's kind of neat. And this guy was super funny and just super great. And, you meet some really interesting people. And he was just super chill. Anyway, we get demobbed. We drive back. Mario says, hey, be careful. The most accidents that happen on fires are when people are headed home. So no pressure, Jake. Just so you know, we're going to drive 6 hours back to Chico. And I'm like, okay. And so we drive back. It's all pretty all right. I'm listening to my hip hop. I'm staying awake, having AC on, making sure I'm well hydrated. I kind of hit my wit's end at that last day. Me and Mario, we didn't get into a fight or anything, but we were, tensions were high. We wanted to go home. We were very exhausted from the heat. And I kind of learned I should have gone back to camp and got some rest to come back. That's something I could have done. So I kind of am learning still. So, we get on the road, we head back 6 hour drive. We actually get there in 5 hours, 15 minutes. We get to make really good time. And God is so faithful. Even there's a moment where we're in downtown Sacramento and we take a wrong exit, and Mario's confused about Google Maps because Google Maps can be confusing. And so I'm just patient. I'm following him, and I'm just praying the entire time. And just, one thing after another, these trials and tribulations, they hit you, and you're like, okay, Lord, what are you going to do here? I know you're going to get us through it, but I have faith in you. So just small things like that will happen. And you're like, oh man, but hey, God is good. And we're just going to keep going. Going to keep marching on. So we get home, and I'm like, oh my God, thank God. And I'm at my wit's end. So mom picks me up in Chico, drives me back home. I'm at their place, and I just take a shower, go to sleep. I wake up, I sleep until 1 in the afternoon. I am exhausted. I get up, I then eat food, about to take another nap, and then I get a call from Mario. And there's another fire, and it's Thompson Fire. And it's just north of Orville, and the north wind is blowing, and it's headed straight to Orville. It went from 40 acres, it went from 20 acres that night to 1,000 acres in 4 hours. It's booking. It's cooking. So shout out to Justin, who was on an episode prior to this. He said they were out doing they were doing a dump run, and they went down to Orville to do some dumping. And he said that they were actually there when the fire was getting going and the plume of smoke was super high and it was getting into the atmosphere. So that was, he said, whoa, what the heck? This is crazy. And so that was the Thompson Fire, which is in Orville. And if this fire got any worse, David, this probably could have been another repeat of the campfire that we had in 2018, where it burned the entire town of Paradise out overnight. So this could have been really bad. But this community, Butte County, has been through a lot, and we were all on the same side and just ready to go and just douse it out. So it's 2 p.m, or 3 o'clock. I get a call from Mario. He's like, yo, bro, you need to get here ASAP. We just got a call from the Thompson Fire. Just get your stuff and let's go. So we head over to the Thompson Fire. I meet them in Chico. We then fill up the truck by his house. He drives down there. Chris shows up. He hops into the Tundra. We drive down, follow Mario, and we're just heading south. And this is Chris's hometown. He lives in Orville. He only lives a couple miles away from where the fire started. And so this is like his neighborhood. He also grew up in northern Orville. So this is like where it started. The origin of the fire is basically where he grew up. He knows all these roads inside and out. So this is like a very huge blessing for us because he knows exactly where to go. So he's kind of like my navigator in this. We go down to Garden Drive in Orville, this little lake area, and we just stage there for now, just wait to see what they want us to do. I forget my fire jacket, my Nomex jacket, and which is like a necessity. Also, we're going into initial attack in this situation, so I need it just in case something happens. So thankfully, his lovely lady, his wife, Sherry, drives back, gets one from a fire station somewhere. It's only a 2X, so it's really tight on me, but it's something I can put over my body, so that's cool. I then meet Dad later on, day afterward, and grab my Nomex. But tonight, we're going to the Thompson Fire. I have some pictures and stuff as well, where in the Thompson Fire, it's a huge plume of smoke going in the atmosphere. Huge. Now, thankfully, it's not going too high. Like, in terms of the weather, the wind, the delta, what's it called? The delta wind or delta current, David? I can't remember what it's called.
The delta breeze?
Delta breeze, yes. So the delta breeze is blowing it southward. So it's not going up into the stratosphere where it can cause like lightning and all this kind of stuff. It's just heading south. The smoke is heading south. So thankfully, that's not happening. So it's kind of like at a plateau. But it's big and scary and it's black. We're like, ooh. So we're driving up the mountain. We finally are called to it. So we're following a couple engines. We have our E number. We're heading up there. I get a picture of it. We're at the base of the mountain where Orville Dam is and Table Mountain is. And it's just whoosh, just a ton of smoke. People are on the roads freaking out. They're trying to drive away from it. Evacuation orders are in place. People are trying to get out of there. It's just, pandemonium chaos. But through all of this, I'm kind of like way more chill and like just making an effort saying, no, I'm not going to get freaked out. I'm not going to do anything with that. I'm just going to follow the truck and make sure they're taken care of. Because that's my job. So we drive up. We're parked on the side of the road at one point, and then we drive up, and we're basically going up the mountain onto Orville Dam. Tons of smoke, tons of fire, stuff around us. You can see it off in the distance. We get onto the Orville Dam, and I have the radio on. And they're calling the water tenders that we were just with. They're calling us. They're calling all the helicopters. The people are all coordinating on this channel. This is air-to-ground attack. You have people coordinating in trucks, the fire engines, all this stuff. I then look out as we're going over Orville Dam, where we're supposed to be, where we're staging at, our truck is. And you just look out, and it's like a war zone. Helicopters going over, dumping water. The flames are super high and burning up the mountainside. The wind is pushing the smoke and the fire up the mountain, up to Table Mountain. Chatter on the radio, communication. Some flubs are happening, I can tell. Just a bunch of different things are happening. It's chaos. It's war zone, kind of. It's not a real war zone like bullets or anything, but it is a war zone of some kind. And it's interesting because in this kind of moment, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, what does the spiritual side of stuff look like in this scenario? What are we looking at it from the spiritual kind of side of things? But if you ever but it gave me a good idea of what it kind of looks like and what it could look like because it was hectic and chaotic. So that was good exposure for me to get through that. So we're on top of the Orville Dam, and I got video of it where you see it's just smoke blocking the sun. You look to your right, and it's just water from the dam, and the water's, it's just peaceful and maybe a little smoky. But to the right, it's just like whoosh, Mordor. And it was pretty crazy. Pretty crazy experience, that. So we're on top of the bridge. Mario and Chris get out to do something with the truck, and all these beetles start covering them, like giant black beetles, like kind of like cockroaches. And they're just starting to attach themselves to their jackets, and like they're crawling. They love Chris. They're crawling all over. They must know he's a local. You're like, oh my God, we love Chris. And so all these beetles are crawling all over him, and the beetles are crawling to Mario, and I'm have the windows up, and I'm like, oh, I don't want any of this. And so finally, and I could tell Chris is in a good mood, because at one point we have to turn around, and he's like, he gets into this weird Italian voice, and he's like, all right, we're going to go over here, and you're going to go back about 10 feet or a mile. And then I'm going to hop back in the truck, and we're going to back up. And I'm like, okay. And so he's in a good mood. He's in his element. He's done this for years. He knows exactly what he needs to do. He's excited to fight the fire and save his community. He's ready to be the hero, So I get that. So he's ready to do some work. He's ready to do what he's made to do. It's dangerous for sure, and we're not really, as a water tender, we're not supposed to do initial attack. That's not what our support role is. We're just supposed to deliver water to the engines that do initial attack. That's our job. But we do have a hose in the back, and he did take advantage of it that night, we'll say. So he was doing great work. He was saving homes. Like, he was spraying out homes and getting the perimeter around them. It was great. So he was great, doing great work. And so was Mario too throughout the day shift. So me and Mario hop in the tundra. We leave Chris in the truck. The road we came back on up the Orville Dam is now burned over, and the fire is on both sides. And there's like sheriffs there at one corner, and we're trying to coordinate and ask, like, hey, is there anywhere else we can go to get out of here? And Mario's like, man, we might have to camp out here on the dam for tonight. Like, this is crazy. Finally, we figure out a way out. There's one road out of there. All the other roads are blocked, or they're on fire, or there's Orville Dam. So the two that are on fire, one the Orville Dam, one that goes north. So we go to the one that goes north. We're able to thankfully go over the outer part of Orville, past the dam, over onto Highway 70 and get out of there. Thankfully. We go back to where we're staging. We get our cots out, and we put some military grade like nets over them to block out bugs. And it was really cool. Mario had an extra one in the truck for me, and that was really neat. But yeah, we get the news that Chris is doing initial attack. He's saving houses. He's being a hero, which is cool, but also he's in his 60s. I want to make sure he's safe, So, he's a good guy. I just want to make sure he's safe, and, he's our priority. So that scared us a little bit, but that's all good. So we spend the night there at the camp, or at this like little lake area. And we then head up north. Before I go to sleep, I find out where we're staging in the morning, because that's key, because I don't think we're going to be staging at this little lake area. It's really small. So I finally get a hold of a CAL FIRE guy before I go to bed. He says it's at the Silver Dollar Fairgrounds. I'm like, can you make sure and call them on the radio just to double check? And he's like, okay, yeah. So he's like, I'm there for 5 minutes or whatever. He's like, yeah, it's at the Silver Dollar Fairgrounds in Chico. And I'm like, okay, interesting. So in the morning, next morning, we go there, go to briefing. We also try to get our radios set up. We have radios to get all different channels of the CAL FIRE stuff to coordinate with, who we're working with. And the line for the comms that morning was so long, and every person had like more than like 5 radios at a time. And there's one guy who's implementing all of the radio connectors for them. There's only one guy they have doing it, because they're still trying to get everything set up. So we just say, screw it, we're going to get out of here and go to Chris. And so we get Chris. He just goes straight home because he lives 3 miles away. So that's what his scenario was, this whole thing. He just goes home every morning and goes to sleep. So I thought that was funny, because me and him were just hanging out the whole time we were on the Sites Fire, the first one. So anyway, that was the first day. And then we go into the second day, and let's see. This is what I just got back from. Thompson Fire was interesting because it was very much more local to me. I mean, we're over here in Chico right now. We're going into Orville. I'm learning the roads and all that kind of stuff, and getting things situated and all that kind of stuff. So we're there for about 4 days, a lot less time. And it's funny because when I was there, I actually saw some like CCC guys I made friends with on the Sites Fire, and they were super cool. Oh, by the way, I have their names. The guys I met when I was at Chico, the fairgrounds. All right, and they said they were going to save the podcast too. I talked to them and advertised the podcast while I was there, David. So I want to shout out a couple people here. I want to shout out Mr. Orlando. He's a cool guy. I called him the host while I was there. So shout out to Orlando. We have Tall Chris, and we have Redheaded Chris, and we have Robert with a beard. So shout out to Orlando, Tall Chris, Redheaded Chris, and Robert. So shout out to you guys, part of the CCC. You guys are working hard, 16-hour days, making sure we're taken care of. You're out there working in the heat regardless of what the heat is. I mean, God bless them. The days we were just out there, David, you know, it's been hot here, but yeah, it was 115, 110 most days, 109, 115. It's a pretty big heat wave we're getting in California right now. It's really, really hot. And thank God our AC is kind of fixed right now in our house. So mostly fixed, but we're going to get all fixed soon. So it's been freaking hot. And shout out to you guys at the CCC that just do the work regardless of the heat. So you guys are going to put some wonderful things on your resumes, and I hope you guys go far. So shout out to, again, Orlando, Tall Chris, Redheaded Chris, and Robert. So you guys are awesome. All right, so from there, where do we want to go? So during this fire, this third one, we're going nonstop for about 3 weeks, I would say, from Sites, Fresno to Thompson. And it was, you know, it was not easy. It wasn't easy work, but it was a good learning and growing experience overall. And I do want to say that God was really working in my boss, Mario, as well. Shout out to him. Every morning on the Fresno and Thompson, and even the Sites Fire later on, we were praying every morning heading into the shift change. And I would lead it, and he would even add prayer to it. And the Holy Spirit was working and starting to work in him and a couple people I was encountering, because Mario said to me, he's like, yeah, I can feel the Holy Spirit working. Like, there's something different about this year. And I don't know what it is, but it might be, I think it's the Holy Spirit. And I was like, holy crap, dang, okay, cool. So I'm just continually praying for him and where his heart is, and the Lord just continuing to work in him and work in me as well. And, you know, this is pretty crazy stuff we've been through, and it's definitely not over. This is only the latter part of June and into July. Right now, as we're recording, it's, you know, the early in July, and things are just getting started. The fire season doesn't start till mid-July, usually. And we're in the middle of June and it started. So very, very grateful of how God has led us through these scenarios and situations. I'm just so thankful that God has been there and been with us and is so faithful to us. Like, I can't, like, I don't have the words for it. Like, I'm so grateful and thankful for him and what he's doing in our lives. And he's saving me too, because like before I got the call from Mario, I was submitting applications. I was looking for different jobs in Chico and the surrounding area, Willows, all that kind of stuff, trying to find a job for the summertime. And I've been doing this in the springtime as well while I was at Butte. But with Butte getting out and that income not coming in, I was really trying to find something, and God supplied me and is having me get paid for all this too. So it's a huge blessing. I'm very excited to see what the future holds. And like I said, he could call me at any moment. I mean, there's fires right now happening around the state. The Shelley Fire is one. There's another one called there's quite a few around north. There's one in the west, east, and south of California here. North, there's one in Santa Barbara right now that's really big right now. Which I'm praying we don't go to that one, but we'll see. But whatever happens, I mean, just God's glory is going to work. And he's going to work in that. And it's just so awesome. And it's just so, it's just interesting. So I'll get into more stuff later. I have some like miscellaneous stuff that I'll get into a later date. But that's pretty much my wildfire journey in California. And that's been my couple weeks and why I haven't been on the podcast really. So, by the way, David, your episode with Justin was awesome. Like, I listened to it when I was on the fire, and I had such a good time listening to it. And the little highlight you did from the ones the adaptations episode we did with Kizasimoto. Oh my God. I listened to that highlight on repeat because it was like the third day we were there at Fresno Fire. So it was like I needed a little bit of home to listen to, and it really warmed my heart to hear all that. So, and I got canceled in the process. So that was great too. So anyway, I'm excited to continue this podcast and to continue things going along. And God is good, man. Like, it's just so good. And like, it's hard, really, really hard for me. And next year, I've already had little bit of opportunities to train on the truck, the water truck. But Chris and me were talking on the sites fire, and he said, I don't think I can do this another year. I think I'm going to retire and go be a mechanic or something. That's basically what he told me. And he's just trying to figure out what he's going to do. He says him and his wife are going to leave California at some point. So he's probably not going to be here next year with our company, which basically enables like me to take over after he leaves, because that was my original goal when I got hired from Mario in the first place, was being a night operator. So technically I'm doing logistics and I'm operator in the same name, but I'm just doing logistics for now. We're just waiting for insurance to kick in for 2025, and then I'll be able to drive the truck, no problem. But in the meantime, I've learned so much about the truck, how things work, what things could go wrong, maintenance, greasing, all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to continue learning and maneuvering around the truck, and repetition is what Mario tells me. He says, repetition. That's how you learn. And he also says, like, you know, you have to have good sleep, you have to eat good, and you have to have your Nomex PPE, as well as rest. Those are the key for an operator. He had lots of examples, because to give you an example, he was working with a guy here on the Thompson Fire who lives in Red Bluff, and he's working in Orville right now with the Thompson Fire. And this guy went back home every night to Red Bluff, which is understandable, but that's like an hour drive. And that guy has to be there at 7 a.m. to relieve his dude. So relieve his night operator. So it's like he was going home every night an hour, coming back for an hour. Also, he was with his family and stuff, so he kind of, you know, had to spend time with his family, of course. But every day he would tell Mario, man, I'm so tired, bro, I'm so tired. And Mario told me, he's like, well, if that guy didn't go home every night, he wouldn't be tired. He would get some rest, he would get some food, he would stay at camp and stay focused on the assignment. And that's just part of Mario's like focus and hyper focus on it. I mean, Mario's from Chico, and we're in Chico right now. He can go home and go to sleep at night, kind of like how Chris is doing too. Now, Chris is a different scenario. He's like, that's just back home, so that's where the fire is. But Mario, I'm really proud of him. He's a really good leader and good example too, because he could have gone home every night in Chico, but he didn't. He stayed at camp. He stayed with me, and I live 20 minutes away, so I could also do that too. But he said, no, we're here to do a job, and we want to do it the most effectively. And we want to make sure we get it done efficiently as possible. And that requires sleep, food, and all this kind of stuff. Good food and good sleep. And we get good sleep in those sleepers that they have at camp. Like, those provide us some really good sleep. They have AC in them. We stay cool. And you have your little bunk you get in, and you're kind of chilling out. So he was a good example and really taught me a lot about it, like making sure you're focused on assignment while you're there. So it was really, really cool. And like, I also learned a lot in this last fire because of how to reset. The last thing I'll say is, after a fire, you want to make sure all your stuff is good to go for the next one, because you don't know when you're going to get the call. So when I got home Saturday morning, David, we kind of cleaned the house, got things ready, but I also like reset too. So I have all my stuff next to the door ready to go. I have my cot, my sleeping bag, my blankets, my pillow, duffel bag, and backpack. And I'm like ready to go. So it's not an easy job. I'm very fortunate to work with Mario and Chris and the company. And we're just a small contractor operation, small business. And it seems for some reason God has me working with small businesses all the time. I guess it's just part of the way it goes, and I have no issue with it. And I'm wherever the Lord takes me. So I think that's it for my wildfire adventures. Yeah, you got any questions, David? I need to take a drink of water.
No questions, but
how were you while I was gone?
Well, yeah, my journey, so-called, definitely not nowhere near as exciting or stressful as yours.
Probably still stressful in a way.
In a way,
yeah.
in its own way. It mostly, mostly having to deal with our AC going out,
Oh my god.
which isn't the biggest issue. The big issue comes from, my shift starts at 3 a.m, and so I have to try to fall asleep during the hottest part of the day.
Yeah.
And I have a fan blowing on me, but when there's no AC and it's over 100 degrees outside,
Which means it's 92, 3, 4, 5 in here.
it's
If there's no
literally
AC.
just blowing hot air on me.
Yeah.
It's not doing anything whatsoever. So that was the biggest issue, was just dealing with not sleeping very well, because I work at 3 a.m, so I gotta fall asleep by like 6, 7, 8 o'clock, which is still boiling hot during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And with no AC, that's doesn't happen very well. I actually had to call off of work one day, either a couple weeks ago, 1 week ago, a couple weeks ago, I can't remember now, because I ate something bad. Like, I had Burger King. I haven't had Burger King in a while.
No, not the Orland Burger King.
And
No, David.
yeah, I forgot how bad it was, and it really messed with my stomach. And so that, in combination with just being hot, and I was like, I was not in any condition to go to work.
Aw.
But other than that, my there hasn't really been anything super exciting or stressful going on here. It's mostly just been me trying to deal with being tired and learning all the video editing stuff,
Yeah, you've been doing good at that, by the way. It's cool to see you jump into that, and you're getting to it, dude. You're learning it, and it's exciting, and I'm just really proud of you, man. In that aspect, it's cool. It's really cool. So, and you're using what, Logic Pro? Is that right?
For video editing?
Yeah.
No, I'm using Final Cut Pro.
Final Cut. Sorry, Final Cut.
Yeah, Final Cut Pro.
I'm not an Apple person, so I apologize.
No, it's fine. I'm just using it because it seems like, since I have a Mac, it seems like a good option.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And you can do all the mastering on it too. So you can do the audio mastering at the same time as well as the video editing portion.
Oh, yeah.
Which is pretty cool. I think DaVinci does something similar to that, but I don't think it does the audio side of things like that. I think that might just be exclusive to Final Cut.
Yeah, I don't know. I think all the big video editing programs like DaVinci, Final Cut, Adobe Premiere, I think you can all use
there's
external audio plugins and all that.
There's ways to do it, but it's more like, it seems like more streamlined in Final Cut.
Yeah, I haven't had any issues with it. I know some people say that Final Cut lacks audio editing capabilities, but I'm assuming that's for more advanced stuff that I don't need to do for editing a podcast,
Yeah.
I haven't had any issue with the audio side of things in Final Cut. That was actually really nice, being able to take a step out of the thing. Instead of having to mix, master, then edit video, I can just mix, export it to video, and master it all in one step.
Super cool. I know DaVinci Resolve kind of does that with the what's it called, color correcting, where it's like literally like 5-step process. Like, you do your audio, you do your video, and then you do your lighting, and then you're you're done. You're exporting, you're good. It's cool with DaVinci. I don't really use DaVinci. I use Premiere Pro. I'm trying to get off of it, but it's like a drug. I need Premiere Pro, man. It's hard to get off of it. But anyway, DaVinci is super cool because you can add stuff to the queue as well, queue export. So you can just like say, oh, I'm going to add this part, I'm going to export this version of it, go back, make some changes, then export it again. And so you can build that up. It's really neat, really cool. I know we're getting kind of the inside baseball of the editing stuff, but while we're here, I mean, I use Premiere Pro. and I use that to edit our podcast. It's our podcast isn't like the most complicated thing to edit, really, especially the highlights. But it's mostly just putting the audio in, putting the image in, and then just making sure you edit it, and make sure it sounds good. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Get all of the tuh parts out of my mouth. You know, the clicks and all that, you know, the stuff that people ASMR, man, you love to listen to. You know. So. But I mean, while we're on the subject of podcasts, I mean, what's the future of Snarp Fangle, David? I think for us, I think we're going to keep doing this for sure on YouTube, but we absolutely want to get into the RSS feed and make sure we get our audio format going.
Oh, yeah.
That's something we've been talking about. We've also been talking about getting a website going eventually. We have the domain.
Oh, yes. Snarpfangle.com.
Snarpfangle.com.
Coming soon to an internet near you.
The internet near you, yeah. As well as, like, we'd love to get on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcast. Just as long as you have the RSS feed, you can go on wherever you want, pretty much. I know I've always been hearing that Spotify was harder to get into. Like, there's a whole nother approval process you have to get in there, but
I think that's a thing of the past.
Okay.
Now they have a website that's called Spotify for podcasters.
Oh, okay.
So I think you sign up specifically for their podcast, thing, and then it's like basically having a YouTube channel at that point.
Interesting. And then you can do the artwork and all that kind of stuff. That's pretty cool. So yeah, we definitely we're striving for that and trying to get it done. It's just right now I want to focus on it. I want to get that done. It's just, life is happening. So it's kind of like, it's going to happen when it's going to happen. And you, the listener, will be the first to know for sure. And we're excited to get it going and get this show on the road.
Yeah.
Heck, I would love, I said helk. Heck, hell, whatever.
Helk.
I love a good bowl of helk in the morning. So heck, I mean, we might have a live show one day. I think that'd be super fun to do.
That would be fun.
Where do you think we would have it? Like, local communities. So we'd have it in Chico or Orland or something.
Yeah, I don't know. That's something I've.
We're in the in the Harvest Festival. We'll have a portion where it's like an hour time slot for us. That's what we'll do. And all the people there who are there for Jesus and getting prayer are going to listen to two nerdy beardy guys talk about whatever.
Yeah, man. What an honor.
For
all those present.
We get about 50 concurrent views on YouTube every week, I would say right now, or 40, 50. So that'd be about the same amount of people live if we go over to the Harvest Festival,
True.
So, but hey, we truly appreciate our audience. There's some pretty cool folks out there. Oh, also, speaking of cool folks, I've had quite a few people ask us about if we're going to do a Patreon or something, which I could see us absolutely doing something in the future like that, but not right now.
Not right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think that'd be awesome because the way it works, audience, is kind of like if you, as far as I understand it, I'm a huge fan of podcasts, and this is what I understand so far, is you have an RSS feed. That's really where the majority of listeners come from, and the audio format only, not really on YouTube. YouTube can be very, very popular and very, what's the word I'm looking for, David?
I have no idea.
It's prolific, whatever. It could be very useful. YouTube is, but it's not really the place for people to listen to podcasts in terms of like the majority of people that listen to podcasts.
Yeah, what's interesting though is I think YouTube is trying to change that because they've implemented some features that have made it more suited for podcasts. Like, for example,
oh yeah, they have that.
So now you can integrate an RSS feed into your YouTube channel.
Into your YouTube channel, which is what we'll definitely do.
So you can, it'll actually pull the
data,
the metadata the episode artwork, even not just the podcast artwork, but it'll pull the episode artwork and then create a video and upload it to YouTube.
Yeah, which is super cool.
So yeah,
super neat.
But definitely the future is trying to get an RSS feed, getting on multiple platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that whole shebang.
And even in terms of video, this is all just in the future. So maybe one day we'll finally go from the living room here to the studio, or maybe not. Maybe we'll stay in the living room.
Who knows?
We'll maybe try a video one day. We'll see what happens. But right now it's just audio only, and I don't see why we need to go to video at the moment. But it'd be very fun to try out new things and to kind of test the waters with that's kind of what Snarp Fangle is. It's kind of just it's whatever people bring to the table, really.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily see any need for us to go, Joe Rogan and turn into a video podcast.
Or Lex Friedman, Yeah, there's no,
But at the same time, I really do at some point in the near future want to start playing around with some kind of video content.
Yeah.
Which my thought is it'll be more supplemental to the podcast than anything else.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and I think that'd be really, really fun to do. And it's cool to see, like, I remember when we were on episode like 13 or 12 or something, I was kind of like getting my head wasn't in the right space, and I was kind of putting my mind and thoughts toward, this is more of a like work than anything else. But no, it's actually like, and that mindset always tries to come back to me. Those thoughts always try and come back to me, but that's not the truth. It's really a fun thing that we get to do here, that we get to do this.
Oh yeah.
And that people actually enjoy it from what I've been told. So I'm very, very honored that you, the listener, are actually like interested in, out of all the things you could do with your time, you want to listen to Jake and David talk. I'm very honored for that. So thank you. And thank you for your support as well. But yeah, RSS feed, Google, Apple, Spotify, podcasts, YouTube, maybe even Rumble. Why not? Who cares? Facebook, whatever.
BitChute.
Odyssey and all these other like random platforms that don't have any money attached to them, really, except for Rumble. So that's gonna be funny. Imagine, dude, it's an election year, dude. Imagine if Rumble gets banned or something like random like that. Can you imagine?
That would be
like it's same thing with the Truth Social and all this stuff for like Trump. Like we're gonna ban him because why not? It's like what?
Oh, that's definitely our next target right
there.
Oh
yeah, Truth Social. That's our
getting on
target
Truth
audience.
Social.
Yep. Mm-hmm. We're gonna be I can't wait to get two retruths on my posts of podcasts.
Retruth.
That's what they call them. I think. I don't go on Truth Social. I know like maybe one person that does it, and that's about it.
I've never been on Truth Social.
I've never been on it. Or minds.com or something. Like I don't really. What's the one that Dave Rubin does? What's it called? It's the platform that Jordan Peterson got going. Do you remember you know what I'm talking about?
No.
It's where it's not minds.com. Oh, locals.
Oh, I've never
it's
heard
like
of
a
that
Patreon
one.
kind of community thing you can do, which is it's not very feasible, but it's there. Like there's a lot of options out there. It's just the big ones are just there, and that's where the people are, and that's where you want to be on the big ones like YouTube and stuff like that.
Now you know what would be the most hilarious possible place we could put our podcast.
Oh, David, what are you gonna?
OnlyFans.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say something else. I'm like, oh, yeah, OnlyFans. Can you imagine, guys, subscribing to the Snarp Fangle OnlyFans?
The funny thing is I don't know.
You want to see some Fangles?
The funny thing is it's at this point it's an adult website for sure.
Oh yeah, it's just.
But the funny
content.
thing is as far as I understand, it was actually intended to be like a Patreon.
Yeah,
kind
it
of
didn't
thing.
start that way. It was just I remember hearing about it when Patreon like controversy stuff was happening. They're like, "Yeah, go to OnlyFans, bro. It's like you can have your podcast on there and stuff."
The really funny
this was
part,
like 4 or 5 years ago, and I remember hearing about them like OnlyFans. I mean, that's an interesting name, and then it just turned into the e-girl website.
Yeah, the really funny thing about OnlyFans is it started trying to be kind of like a Patreon sort of thing, just a place for creators to go to host their content and for people to support them and all that, But somehow, just somehow, all the e-thoughts
Yep.
decided to migrate there. And then for whatever reason, OnlyFans was like, hey, we're gonna ban not safe for work content. It's like,
what are you guys doing? That's where most of your money comes from.
that was
and then the uproar happened, like all the women that are on there just and just like went after them. Same thing with Twitch when they were going to ban whatever.
Yeah,
Twitch is basically turning into OnlyFans right now.
A giant chorus. It's as if a chorus of e-girls rose up in protest and then were suddenly silenced.
I just heard this. What's the movie where it's like, was it Planet of the Apes? Or like, I just heard the sound of a million voices. Oh no, it's Star Wars. Like,
yeah,
Obi-Wan, he's like, I just heard the sound of a million voices cry out in agony. It's like, I just heard the sound of a million e-girls rise up in revolt. It's like, oh my God. So, but dude, like seriously, like Twitch is like something that I probably will never ever want to be a part of at all, especially for live streaming, because it is just now becoming like, it's like the equivalent to like Instagram right now, where it's just a place where debauchery is. And like, I mean, it's not the only thing that's on Twitch, obviously, or Instagram, but they're bleeding money from Amazon. So I get it, but it's like, do you really want your brand associated with that? Like, OnlyFans tried to move away from it and then they just embraced it. And you embracing this doesn't seem to be the right avenue, at least.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like OnlyFans, once you
go there, you can't go back.
Yeah. OnlyFans tried to go back from that and they weren't able to. So if that's where you want to be associated, you're going to be stuck there. And you have to decide, am I okay with my platform being stuck with that association until the end of time?
Yep. And I get it. Like, I get it. Twitch needs to make money. They're not making money. But it's like Amazon bought you guys. Like, I get why you need to make money, and I totally get it. But this is not the avenue to do it. This is not how you, what's it called? This is not how you cultivate a community. This is like allowing the wolves to come in and just ruin the place. Like, that's what's happening right now. In fact, I'll give you an example, David. This was like 6 years ago. I discovered this person. Her name was like Laura something, and she was a pianist. And she always did like video game soundtracks, and she always like did live streams and stuff. And she plays the piano just beautifully. Like, she's awesome. And then I found out like on her, I was following her on YouTube for years. And then like randomly she posted a thing like, I'm on OnlyFans now and I do modeling. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, what is this? And it turns out, yeah, she has an OnlyFans and she has all this stuff. So I kind of like, after that, I unsubscribed to her on YouTube and unfollowed her on Twitter. I'm like, I don't want any of this. Like, she started wearing like bikinis in her piano videos. Like, what the heck's going on, girl? Like, chill out. And like, I love me any kind of Australian people. That's some of my favorite YouTube people of all time. And yeah, you're an Australian, but you doing this, you don't get the Australian pass. I'm sorry. You just don't. But it was really disappointing. And then I found out later, there's somebody who actually worked with her, another like pianist lady. And she said that she basically is like a He-Man man hater or whatever. She like really hates men, like in general. Like, she's a pretty big sexist, to be quite real. And I did not know this about her. And this is just from one person I heard online that I've only briefly followed. But yeah, she apparently hates men. She is taking advantage of this OnlyFans thing to get money, and that's pretty much the only reason they're doing it. That's the only reason anybody really does it. And it's like just really disappointing. Like, why would you throw your life away? Like, I get she's like 39 or whatever, but it's like, why throw your life away, man? Like, it's just sad.
Yeah.
I mean, bummer.
People are sort of, unfortunately, caught in the deception that it's empowering. Wow. I don't do this for the attention of men. I don't do this for the attention
of men.
I do this for me.
Me? I take my clothes off for the good of all women. Really? Okay.
Yeah, I get naked and writhe around because it makes me feel good.
Because it makes me feel good. It's not about money. It's not about all this kind of stuff, but man, we're approaching on the point where people are going to try to cancel us for it. So. All those, I think, David, I hear it. I hear the sound of a million e-thoughts crying out in agony, and they're coming for us. I hear the war cries, and these ain't no Xena warrior princesses. They ain't like that. They're just gonna try to hit you with pool noodles or something. You better watch out.
Oh my God. Okay, I think we've.
I think the Belle Delphines are coming after us. So we're not going to be on OnlyFans, just so you know. The Patreon's not going to be that kind of content.
No one would want to see that kind of content anyway.
No. They just want to listen to our lovely voices.
Yeah, I was more going for the joke that, audio only podcast. That's not explicit in the slightest.
Okay.
On OnlyFans.
On OnlyFans.
Because that's what it's for.
That's what it's for. Like,
it's definitely
isn't
not.
like DJ Kali or something on OnlyFans, and he has like it's not like he strips down or anything, but it's like his like music videos or whatever are on there, and he does like little vlogs apparently.
I've never heard of this, but
he's
I
like
would not be surprised.
I think he's got to know like the creator or something of OnlyFans, because like he's like one of the main pages when you go there or something.
DJ Khaled.
DJ Khaled, yes.
Okay then.
Yeah, that's just how it is. So anyway, but yeah, we'll be on other stuff in the future, not OnlyFans, but we'll be on Patreon and other stuff, and give it time, and we'll be there. But yeah, David, I have had some people ask me, like, when are you going to do your Patreon? Like a couple of our friends, they're like, I'd subscribe to your Patreon. I'm like, oh, okay. But if we do a Patreon, it wouldn't be like $10 or anything. I think $5 would be like the max I would ask from people. Also, we'd have to make extra content for just the Patreon.
Yeah, we would have to step it up if we were doing Patreon.
It's not hard to do. It just takes more time.
Yeah.
And so to do that, it would take just more investment in planning and coordinating and stuff like that versus, oh, hey, it's Monday morning. Let's just hop on a pod together. You know?
Yeah. What we do is it's not work necessarily. Yeah. Sometimes, it's like, oh, when am I going to find time to edit this video? But for the most part, it's not work.
Yeah.
So we can keep doing it, no problem. But yeah, so if we go too hard with this whole, we're going to be making money now.
Yeah, exactly. Because
that's when it turns into work. And so I want to make sure that before we go down that road that we're ready for.
Yeah, we're ready for it. Yeah. Like we have planned, we have schedules, we have people lined up. That's what it would be. And I really I was listening to, it's weird that we complain about the quartering, but I was listening to him and his interview with Crowder the other day, a couple weeks ago. And he was just giving his his point of view of how he treats his audience. And it was very kind of eye-opening and very respectful, and I was very surprised listening to that. Because we think the quartering's not all that great, but we love you, Jeremy, but we just don't like your content. But he made some very excellent points about wanting to not only honor your audience, but treat them with respect, and not only that, but to really cherish them and to be careful of where you guide them. Like not taking ad spots or sponsor spots from companies you're not familiar with or that kind of thing. And that's kind of something I'd like to kind of hold on to, like making sure if we're going to advertise to you guys, the listeners, I want to make sure it's something that's useful to you or something that you could potentially invest in, or like coffee or something simple like that or something like that. I think that'd be fine. I know David wants to do Raid Shadow Legends, but which is some pretty good money from what I hear, but we'll see what happens in the future. I mean, I'm kind of up for whatever, but as long as we keep thanking you, the audience, and kind of provide you with the quality content as well. I think that's the main thing, is to provide you with the thing that you want and then go from there. I think that's kind of where our head's at, as well as just enjoying what we do, and just being ourselves, really.
Yeah, I think at this point this is more for us than anything else.
Yeah, I have goals. Like I would love to get 1,000 subscribers within the year we started it, or when did we start this? February this year, 2024. We have 26 subscribers so far. I mean,
yeah,
which is cool. Hey, 26 people. That's pretty neat. But I just want to make sure we have the right mindset when we have 20 people and the same mindset when we have 2,000 or 20,000 people. Because that's key, especially in modern like culture and media and that kind of thing. So just want to make sure we treat you guys well, and we really do appreciate you and all you do for us. So thank you for watching and consuming our content. You're pretty neat. David, do we have any final words to say before we go today? What's this origin of Snarp Fangle?
In closing, I think what I would like to say
Is butt nugget.
is the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog.
Shout out to Chris, man. Shout out to Chris. He's gonna love that when he hears you say that. he does that every. Anyway, I love you, Chris.
All right.
All right. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for listening to another episode of Snarp Fangle. One more thing. I think by next episode, I'll have this more set up, but I really want people to start writing into our Gmail. We actually have an email address for you to write into.
Message us.
Message us, man. Snarp Fangle POD, snarpfanglepod@gmail.com. Save that email address, and when we ask for inquiries, I kind of want to do an episode, David, where I know I haven't told you this, but I wanted to do an episode where it's like stranger than fiction, where it's stories that have happened to you in real life that you could have never wrote.
Oh yeah,
and so that's kind of what I want to do. And so I have a couple examples in my life, but I think this would be far more interesting if we just get just straight in reader inquiries.
Also, our bin of hate mail is getting a little low.
I know, it's getting a little low.
Please.
Like, ever since I left, it's been getting a little low, and David's been like, everybody loves David. They hate me. I mean, I don't get that. So, hey, start writing into us, man. The good and the bad, and the ugly. We'll take it. So anyway, snarpfanglepod@gmail.com. Save it for when you do, because we'll be asking for some inquiries from you.
Love it. Cherish it. Treasure it.
Treasure it. So anyway, thank you so much for listening. You have a good rest of your week, and Snarp Fangle on.
Bye-bye now.